Welcome to the in-service training program for the AMSCO 400 Series Small Steam Sterilizer. STERIS has developed this program to help you learn how to properly operate and maintain your AMSCO 400 Series Small Steam Sterilizers. Segment 1 briefly explains basic information and required knowledge essential for decontaminating surgical instruments and equipment. Segment 2 reviews components of the AMSCO 400 Series Steam Sterilizer. Segment 3 shows how to operate the AMSCO 400 Series Steam Sterilizer. And Segment 4 reviews routine care and maintenance. There are two different AMSCO 400 Series models, the Pre-Vacuum Steam Sterilizer and the Steam Flush Pressure Pulse or SFPP sterilizer. And each comes in one of two chamber sizes, a 16 by 16 inch version that processes up to two 25-pound sets, and a 20 by 20 inch version that processes up to three 25-pound sets. The operation and maintenance functions of the two models are basically the same, but there are differences in the factory default cycle settings that will be explained in this video. For this training program, we'll use the 20 by 20 by 38 pre-vacuum model. Steam sterilization is the most cost-effective and dependable sterilization method available for surgical instrumentation. Steam heats and penetrates rapidly, requires brief exposure time, is non-toxic, and leaves no residues. Because of the high temperatures generated during this process, surgical instruments that are heat and moisture sensitive cannot be sterilized with steam. Please refer to all manufacturer recommendations on sterilization before processing surgical instrumentation. Steam sterilization relies on steam reaching all instrument surfaces. Therefore, proper cleaning, packaging, and loading of the instruments are vital to achieve optimal sterilization results. The sterilization process includes these general steps: manually or mechanically clean instruments to remove visible soils, dry instruments thoroughly, organize instrument trays, include pack control sterility assurance monitoring chemical indicator, package instruments and instrument sets, label and document packages, include load control sterility assurance monitoring indicator, properly load the sterilizer. After sterilization, goods should be stored in conditions that will not compromise the barrier quality of their wrapping materials. Be sure to understand and follow your department's policies and procedures regarding the processes involved with these steps. Safety, yours and the patient's, is an important part of the sterilization process. AMSCO 400 Series sterilizers include a number of important safety features. Be sure to read all of the safety warnings and cautions that are detailed in the safety precautions, sterilization operation, and routine maintenance sections of your 400 Series operator manual. Review the operator manual for the AMSCO 400 Series sterilizer for descriptions of the factory default cycle settings. Pre-programmed settings exist for several common load types, as well as leak and dart tests that are recommended to be run daily. The AMSCO 400 Series small sterilizer is programmed with one or more cycles intended to process items for immediate use. Immediate use is defined as the shortest possible amount of time between a sterilized item's removal from the sterilizer and its clean transfer to a sterile field. A sterile item intended for immediate use must not be stored. It cannot be held for use on a future case, and the pre-vacuum immediate use cycle is the preferred immediate use cycle to use. Tests such as the DART or Bowie Dick are designed to document the removal of residual air from a sample challenge load. Run a DART cycle daily before processing any loads in a sterilizer equipped with pre-vacuum cycles. The first pre-vacuum cycle of each day should be used to test the adequacy of air removal from the chamber and load, so that steam can penetrate the load. It is not a test for adequate exposure to heat in terms of time at temperature. In the case of these tests, following exposure in a pre-vacuum sterilizing cycle, the pack is opened, the indicator examined, and conclusions are drawn as to the pattern of residual air, if any, that remained in the pack during the sterilization cycle. Any indication of a malfunction must be reported to the supervisor, and the sterilizer must not be used again until approved by the supervisor. The vacuum leak test cycle, which should be run daily or weekly, measures the integrity of the sealed pressure vessel and associated piping to assure air is not being admitted to the sterilizer during the vacuum drawdowns. After running a leak test cycle, a value or leak rate will be printed on the printer tape. This value will help define a trend over a period of time if the integrity of the system begins to deteriorate or allow air to enter the system. For additional information on sterilization standards and practices, STERIS Corporation recommends that you review the guidelines published by industry associations such as AAMI, AORN, and ISHM. Following these guidelines for cleaning, packaging, and loading instruments is the first vital step for effective steam sterilization. Let's review what we've learned in this segment. When used as a sterilant, steam sterilization is non-toxic and does not leave a residue. Surgical instruments must be properly cleaned, packaged, and loaded to achieve optimal sterilization. Surgical instruments that are heat and moisture sensitive cannot be sterilized with steam. Always wear your personal protective equipment. The AMSCO 400 series sterilizer is available in two different sizes: a 16 by 16 inch chamber that accommodates up to two 25-pound sets or 4 fabric packs, and a 20 by 20 inch chamber that accommodates up to 3 25-pound sets or 6 fabric packs. The AMSCO 400 series small steam sterilizer was developed to fit into the surgical suite and was designed for easy load and unload. It features a hands-free open and close door, adjustable shelves, and a non-heat conducting door design for operator safety. The door stops automatically upon obstruction, and the control lockout feature prevents a cycle from starting if the door isn't sealed. The quick, intuitive controls help you choose the cycles you need quickly. The most commonly used cycles come pre-programmed with optimum temperature settings, sterilized times, dry times, and recommended loads. Sterilized temperatures range from 250 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit, which can sterilize a double-wrapped instrument tray of up to 25 pounds in 3 or 4 minutes, with a dry time of 30 minutes. Custom cycle programming is also quick and easy. Set a program for custom ortho sets, loaner sets, or special instruments that must be used for every procedure and be processed quickly. Custom cycles can be set easily, and they can be named for the surgeons or their instrument sets. Next to the control screen, the permanent impact printer is conveniently located at eye level. The AMSCO 400 series sterilizer was built with efficiency at its core, both in terms of its use of resources and minimizing waste. It's built to be productive while consuming less water and power. It features automatic utilities startup and shutdown. It contains preset times of operation, and its precise process controls minimize water use throughout a cycle. Now that you've been oriented to the unit and its basic design and function, let's cover how to operate it and run a cycle. The controls for the sterilizer are contained within the control touchscreen. Control touchpads appear on the screen as needed during each operation. Available controls change as the sterilizer steps through different operations. Let's take a look at the main sterilizer and cycle controls. The main power disconnect switch is located at the side of the sterilizer on the main control box. This switch disconnects power to the control. Under normal operation, this switch is left in the on position at all times and accessed only when servicing the sterilizer. The steam supply valve is located behind the side access panel or within the wall enclosure above the chamber. Ensure this is in the open position before trying to operate the sterilizer. The water supply valve is located behind the side access panel or within the wall enclosure below the chamber. Ensure this is in the open position before trying to operate the sterilizer. The chamber emergency manual exhaust valve is used only in emergency situations. This valve is to be left in the closed position for normal operation. The sterilizer control touchpad shows its standby mode usually at night when the sterilizer is not being operated. In this mode, steam is turned off and the machine cools, saving energy. It enters the operating mode when the on touchpad is pressed. This touchpad switches the sterilizer control between standby and ready conditions. You may notice screen reference numbers appearing in the upper right corner of each display. Numbers are used for reference only. and do not relate to the operating sequence of the screen. Now, let's cover the control displays, which can be divided into two categories: those occurring when the sterilizer is out of cycle and those occurring when it is in cycle. Out-of-cycle displays are used to start cycles or set up and adjust sterilizer operation. With the exception of the cycle starting displays, most out-of-cycle displays will only be used occasionally. When the sterilizer is in cycle, displays generally appear automatically, and unless an abnormal condition occurs, require no special attention or instructions. In-cycle displays tell the operator at what temperature and pressure the sterilizer chamber is operating, show the current cycle phase, and indicate when the cycle is complete. When the operator is experiencing an abnormal condition, an alarm display will appear. When an alarm occurs during cycle operation, a display appears on the screen, along with an audible tone. The display indicates the problem as determined by the control sensors, and lists a brief troubleshooting list for the operator to follow if possible. If these instructions fail to clear the alarm, consult your supervisor or a trained service technician before continuing to use the sterilizer. Now, let's learn more about choosing a cycle. 4 cycle selection touchpads can be shown on the screen. Each pad displays the basic parameters of the cycle: the cycle name, sterilization exposure temperature, sterilization exposure time, and dry time. Additional cycle options may be selected by pressing more cycles. The AMSCO 400 series sterilizer can be programmed to retain values for up to 12 separate cycles. In pre-vacuum sterilizers, the first 6 cycles are factory default cycles and are routinely displayed on screen 1. Press more cycles to access cycles 5 and 6. Up to 3 additional cycles can be programmed and displayed. In steam flush pressure pulse sterilizers, the first 5 cycles are factory default cycles and are routinely displayed on screen 1. Press more cycles to access cycle 5. Up to 4 additional cycles can be programmed and displayed. It is important to note that settings in factory cycles have been validated to satisfy the appropriate industry requirements. If cycle sterilization times, dry times, and temperatures other than those set by factory settings are required, it is the responsibility of the healthcare facility to consult and follow the device manufacturer's written instructions. Dart and leak test cycle parameters are fixed. The buttons for these cycles do not display values for exposure temperature, exposure time, or drying time. At times, there may be an occasion to end a cycle before it finishes normally. For this, use the Abort touchscreen pad. A cycle only needs to be aborted if an abnormal condition or a control problem develops during the cycle. Pressing abort causes the sterilizer chamber to depressurize if pressurized, or air brake if in vacuum. The door seal deactivates, the control prompts the operator to open the door, and the sterilizer returns to its normal out-of-cycle state. If an abnormal condition persists after fully aborting the cycle, contact your supervisor or a qualified service technician before trying to operate the sterilizer further. The printer, which records all cycle data, is found next to the control panel. Its function buttons can be found on the control panel's typical in-cycle screen. Options include paper feed, which you would press to feed out paper from the roll stored inside the control; status print, which provides a printout of the current cycle phase and conditions; and duplicate print, which prints out the last previously run cycle. The procedure for changing the paper will be covered with routine maintenance later in the video. Reference the operator manual for information about interpreting the status print codes on a cycle printout. The AMSCO 400 series sterilizer is equipped with a foot pedal that opens and closes the sterilizer door. Pressing the foot pedal while the door is in the closed or up position causes the door to open. Pressing the foot pedal while the door is in the open or lowered position causes the door to close. Keep the door closed when the unit is not in use. An important safety feature to note is the emergency stop switch. This feature shuts the sterilizer down completely in an emergency situation. Pressing the emergency stop switch disconnects power to the door and valves, causing the door to stop and critical valves to close. An alarm is generated when the emergency stop switch is pressed. An emergency stop key is required to reset the switch. Refer to the alarm procedure in the operator manual to clear the alarm. Do not use the emergency stop switch as a start-stop switch. To properly abort a cycle, press the Abort button on the sterilizer display. Now, let's cover how to run a cycle. Press the On touchscreen button on the control display. STERIS recommends inspecting the interior chamber and chamber drain strainer each morning before running the daily warm-up cycle. Open the chamber door and check that the drain strainer is clean and in place, and that the chamber interior is clean. Close the chamber door. Verify that the utility supply valves are in the open position. Open the control access door. Check the printer paper roll. A colored warning stripe is visible when the roll is near its end. Run a required test cycle. Refer to the operator manual and internal process requirements for specifics. Once the tests have been run, proceed to loading the sterilizer. Before loading, you must prepare your load by ensuring all materials are thoroughly cleaned. The AMSCO 400 series sterilizer holds commonly used wrapped or unwrapped instruments and equipment. Wrappers must be made of 100% cotton, 140 thread count 2-ply fabric, and must be laundered. It also handles non-woven disposable wrappers. Limit the weight of each fabric pack to approximately 3.3 pounds and density to 11.3 pounds per cubic foot. This ensures complete steam penetration and minimizes moisture retention. Limit the weight of each wrapped instrument set to 25 pounds to minimize moisture retention. Next comes placing the loads in the unit. Specific guidelines can be found in AAMI ST79. If a cycle has been run, the unit and shelves may be hot. Wear clean gloves or mitts and use clean towels as pot holders when loading. Place all packs on the edge and arrange the load to allow for maximum steam exposure so there is minimal resistance for steam passage through the load. Place utensils and treatment trays on their edges so they will be sterilized and properly dried. Place instrument sets in trays that have a perforated or mesh bottom. Place flat. If mixed loads of fabrics and hard goods, place the hard goods on the lower shelf. This reduces the wetting of fabric packs from condensate dripping from a hard goods load. Be careful not to overload the sterilizer. Allow for steam penetration between packs. Avoid contact with the wall of the chamber. After placing the load in the chamber, close the chamber door. The sterilizer is now ready to run a cycle. At the end of a cycle, and the end of a cycle tone sounds, open the chamber door. Wear clean gloves and use clean towels or mitts as pot holders to carefully remove the load and avoid unnecessary handling. Never place a sterilized tray on a solid shelf or cold surface. Once it's cooled, place it on a wire shelf. Visually check the outside wrapper for dryness. If there are water droplets or visible moisture on the exterior of the package or on the tape used to secure it, the load is considered unacceptable. To prevent condensation, transfer the load to a surface that is well padded with fabric. Do not place the load on a cold surface. Then remove the packs or instrument trays from the padded surface when they have reached room temperature. After removing the load from the chamber, close the chamber door and keep it closed to minimize utility consumption. As mentioned earlier, this sterilizer comes with a set of pre-programmed cycles that comply with all relevant healthcare standards. However, cycle temperatures, sterilization times, and dry times can be changed to meet specific instrument manufacturer reprocessing instructions. You can also choose which cycles are displayed on the main control panel display and change the sterilizer settings. Sterilizer time can be adjusted upward to a maximum of 99 minutes, but neither time nor temperature can be adjusted below the minimum values recommended by healthcare standards. If cycle parameters, sterilized time, dry time, temperature, other than the factory set values are required, it is the responsibility of the healthcare facility to consult and follow the device manufacturer's written instructions for processing. To adjust the sterilizer's operation, press the menu button. The Change Time and Date, Change Cycle Values, Change Machine Setup, and Duplicate Print buttons are displayed. To change cycle values, press the Change Cycle Values button. Then press the cycle button number you want to change. Choose the cycle type. Then choose the cycle parameter you want to change. For example, to change the sterilizer temperature value for a Prevac cycle, enter the desired temperature into the keypad, ranging from 270 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. If you make a mistake, use the backspace button on the keypad to erase what you entered. Press the Exit button to accept the new value, or press the Restore All Default Values button to keep the factory set cycle value and return to the Change Cycle screen. To adjust the sterilized time for a 270 degree Fahrenheit Prevac or SFPP cycle, enter the new value, ranging from 4 minutes to 99 minutes. A 275 degree Fahrenheit Prevac or SFPP is adjustable from 3 minutes to 99 minutes. To change the dry time, enter the new value using the same range of 1 minute to 99 minutes. If you experience a power failure, you won't have to reprogram cycles. The sterilizer control stores all of your preferences in customized cycles. You can also change other machine setup options such as date and time. To change the time, press the Change Time and Date button and use the keypad to enter the new time, hours first, then minutes. If you make a mistake, press the backspace button to clear the entry. Once you've input the correct time, press the Exit Screen button to go back to the Change Time and Date screen. The date can be displayed in one of 3 formats: day, month, year, month, day, year, or year, month, day. Press the Date Format button to toggle through the options until the preferred format is displayed. Finally, to change the date, press the Date button and use the keypad to enter the new value. Once you have made all of your changes, press the Exit Screen button and go back to the Options screen. You can also use the Auto Utility controls to program the sterilizer to automatically shut off its steam and water at the end of the day to conserve utilities. Shutdown and power-up times can be programmed for any time of the day on weekdays or the weekend. To set up this function, press the Menu button from the main status screen. Press the Change Machine Setup button, then the Utility Control button. Select Manual or Automatic. If Automatic is selected, you can program the restart and shutdown times for each day of the week. Choose the day, then press Restart Time. Use the keypad to enter the new restart time and press Exit. Repeat for setting up the shutdown time. Proper maintenance ensures a long and productive life for the AMSCO 400 series sterilizer. In this section, we'll cover the preventative maintenance schedule and procedures for the operator. For sterilizer monitoring, you'll run a Bowie, Dick, or Dart test and a vacuum leak test. The Bowie-Dick test indicates if air has been effectively removed from the chamber and challenge pack. This test should be run daily before processing any loads using a pre-vacuum cycle. To ensure valid test results, always run a warm-up cycle before performing a Bowie-Dick test to allow the machine to achieve proper operating temperature. It's important to note that the Bowie-Dick test is not a test for adequate sterilization. All test cycle values are pre-programmed and cannot be adjusted. To initiate a warm-up cycle, press More Cycles until the Test Cycle screen appears. Press the Warm-up Cycle button. Once the warm-up cycle is finished, place a Dart test or properly prepared Bowie-Dick test pack or commercially available test pack on the lowest rack of the sterilizer. Make sure the test pack is positioned above the chamber drain. Press the Dart test button to begin the cycle. The sterilizer temperature will reach 270 degrees Fahrenheit. After 3.5 minutes of sterilized time and 1 minute of dry time, the test cycle is complete. Open the chamber door at the conclusion of the cycle and, wearing your personal protective equipment, carefully remove and open the Dart test or Bowie-Dick test pack. Examine the test sheet indicator for complete and uniform color change. The entire cycle is also documented on the test cycle printout. The vacuum leak test should be performed at least once a week. It automatically checks for leaks in the piping and door seal. To ensure valid test results, always run a warm-up cycle before performing this test. When the warm-up cycle is finished, initiate the vacuum leak test. The sterilizer chamber must be empty while running this test cycle. From the Test Cycles menu, press the Leak Test button. Again, the vacuum leak test cycle values are pre-programmed and cannot be adjusted. The entire vacuum leak test cycle is also documented on the printout and includes a leak rate value. A leak rate of less than 1.0 millimeters of mercury per minute is considered acceptable. Leaks greater than this need to be addressed by service or maintenance personnel, who can monitor the airtightness of the system and make repairs or adjustments as needed. Only SFPP and gravity cycles should be run if the leak rate is greater than 1.0 millimeters of mercury. It's important to note that the vacuum leak test is not a substitute for a Dart or Bowie-Dick test. STERIS recommends inspecting the interior chamber and chamber drain strainer each morning before running the daily warm-up cycle. Start by cleaning the chamber drain strainer, preferably after the final cycle of the day has been run. Remove it from the drain in the bottom of the chamber. Remove any obvious debris, and if necessary, clear the screen and the strainer using a brush, wire, or similar tool. Once it has been cleared of obvious debris, reverse flush the strainer under running water. Replace the strainer in the chamber drain. Once a week, or whenever the line becomes clogged, you'll want to flush the chamber drain. To do this, turn off the steam supply valve. Wait until the jacket pressure is 0, and wait until the chamber has cooled to room temperature. Remove the chamber drain strainer. Pour a solution of 1/4 cup of instrument detergent and 1 pint of hot water into the drain, and place the strainer back in the drain. The chamber itself needs to be cleaned regularly, but due to differences in water quality, frequency of use, and other factors, no specific frequency interval is recommended. Base your cleaning schedule on local water conditions and the chamber's appearance. You'll want to clean the chamber with a mild detergent solution when spills or other soiling have occurred in the chamber, periodically to maintain sterilizer cleanliness and appearance, and when processing materials that may be detrimental to the sterilizer, such as chloride-containing substances. We'll now cover changing the printer paper roll. Make checking the paper part of your daily routine. If you see the color stripe, the roll should be changed. To change the roll, first press and release on top of the printer outer door. Tear the paper between the take-up spool and printer. Remove the take-up spool from the drive by inserting your fingers in the cavity and lifting slightly to pull the spool out. Remove the used paper from the spindle. Open the access door and remove the old paper roll, gently pulling any remaining tape out of the printer roll mechanism. Insert the new paper roll. Insert the end of the paper into the printer roller mechanism just behind the ink cartridge. Press the paper feed button on the printer until the paper advances through the printer mechanism and ink cartridge, exiting through the front. Continue pressing the paper feed button until about 18 inches of paper hangs out of the printer. Insert the end of the paper into the slot on the take-up spool. Coil the paper around the take-up spool until it's secure. Reinstall the take-up spool in the bracket and manually roll up the slack paper. Close the printer door. The printer ink cartridge should be changed as soon as the type on the printouts is noticeably light or faded, and before printouts become difficult to read. Tear the paper between the take-up spool and the printer. Then press on the right end of the ink cartridge until the left end of the cartridge pops out of the printer. Slip the cartridge off the end of the paper. Slip a new cartridge over the paper, making sure the paper slides between the ink cartridge and ink ribbon. Install the left end of the cartridge first, then push the right end in, snapping it into place. Retighten the ribbon by rotating the wheel on the left side of the cartridge a quarter turn. Close the printer door. In addition to routine maintenance, regularly scheduled preventive maintenance is essential for assuring peak performance and avoiding unscheduled downtime. Refer to the operator manual for a preventive maintenance schedule. Certain preventative maintenance activities must be done by a STERIS service technician or a STERIS-trained service technician in your facility. To schedule a maintenance appointment with a STERIS service technician, call 800-333-8828. As the pace of the healthcare environment increases, so do the demands on your SPD. Our professional field service technicians are available 24/7 to resolve any maintenance issues that may occur. STERIS also offers 4 on-site preventive maintenance programs. These programs are designed to help ensure your equipment will be operating according to factory specifications and to protect your capital investment. Ask your STERIS representative for details on these valuable programs. In this section, you learned performing routine maintenance keeps your AMSCO 400 series medium sterilizer operating properly. How to replace printer paper and ink cartridge. STERIS service technicians are available 24/7. STERIS's valuable preventive maintenance programs to help you save time and money. This concludes the training program for the AMSCO 400 series small steam sterilizer. For more information about the presentation you've just seen, or to order supplies or accessories, visit STERIS.com or contact your STERIS account representative.